there a band from your teenage that you discovered when you were a teenager that influenced you a lot back then and then has continued to influence you up until today, that you still listen to and still draw influence from musically when you're writing?
The first two albums I ever bought was Boyz II Men, Cooley High Harmony, and Pearl Jam 10, which are still like two really amazing albums. Like they're definitely things that I love and that I could claim as favorites, but you know, as is, I'm like really interested in where music is going and like what's really like pushing the boundary rather than what things are just emulating what's kind of happened, like what's sculpting the future.
I was starting to learn the trumpet and I encountered Herb Alpert, who sold probably, I want to say he sold more records, at least in the 60s, than the Beatles did. He gives the trumpet a lot of different characters, and I appreciate that about him too.
I always try to find as much new stuff as I can, but I think two of the main ones for me that are kind of cliche answers, but like Radiohead and Tool were like two of my big like later teen year kind of bands and everything, and those two I still listen to all the time. And ironically, things like Tool, that's kind of like a little more heavy kind of stuff, it influences me for folk sometimes, which is weird, but I don't know why that is, but it does. So
in terms of a band or an artist that I still listen to today that I used to listen to back then and still listen with the same kind of respect and passion, I mean, Nirvana definitely keeps coming around and keeps impressing me with each passing year.
Spots of the sun that filled your eyes, replace the view at symphony with what you do with lies. They took all your feathers and turned them to stones, and they just crawl around the clean. It's easy on the bones that you never let a soul into the world you made. And when those lights always dark, when it's your eyes at the shades and you just stared at me. Now you know I know I'm an arrow directed at you. So let's start the show.
Some bands, I think, they live in a city, so they're considered like a band from that town. That doesn't necessarily have an influence on the music that they write. And then other bands like come from a town and they like identify with the town and their music as like part of, you know, where they live and where they come from or where their surroundings. So do you guys consider yourself a San Francisco band in that you're highly influenced by the city, or do you draw from other things to write your music?
We consider ourselves a San Francisco band. I love this city very, very much, and I'm very proud of the scene here, the music scene, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I would want people to identify us with San Francisco indie music.
I think there's something really San Francisco about El Gato somehow. In the folkiness of it, moderated through sort of, I guess, you know, semi-hippie point of view. Those are elements that have been really prominent in the San Francisco music scene's history.
yeah, I think we do, and I definitely like getting more involved with local events and playing at these, you know, doing almost like busking at like these general, you know, if it's like a farmer's market or, you know, like a free Friday art walk. San Francisco is definitely central to the band though, for sure, and I think it's definitely just the feel of the city and everything definitely is complementary to what we're achieving with sound and different things like that. So
something that's awesome about the city for sure is that it's really super diverse kind of like musical scene where it kind of like goes a whole lot of different places. It helps and supports the fact that we're able to kind of really further push whatever our kind of like artistic instincts are. And that's actually one reason I moved to San Francisco, was that it really seemed like that the very like base of it, it's a really like music loving city.
If you had to come up with your own deep thought, you know, deep thoughts, what was it? Originally
Saturday
on
Night
Saturday Night
Live.
Live.
Yeah.
What would your deep thought be?
So I always pondered the idea, if I were to ever actually get a burrito and find an image of God etched in the burrito, would I eat it or would I frame it and hang on to it and cherish it? And the more I ponder the question, I think that I would definitely go ahead and eat it, because either way, God only likes pizza, so I'd go to hell.
I thought you were going to say that then I'll have God within me, in my body.
My cats do this thing whenever there's a bird outside, or if they're outside, if there's a bird that's like out of their reach, that they like to chatter at. So they'll do this thing that sounds like which is really weird for cats. There doesn't seem to be a like utilitarian purpose behind doing this, because it's, you know, if they stood any chance of catching the bird before they were chattering at it, they certainly don't. Now that they've started making noise.
It's probably going to be extremely cheesy, but the deepest that I can think is about the meaning of life. Overall, it all comes down to love. I think the love is always there with everybody. Like, if the potential to love every single person is there.
You'd think that enjoying the sun couldn't kill you. You'd be wrong. There's this thing in those deep thoughts, and it's
The boobs.
The king threw back his head and laughed. He enjoyed a good laugh, as did his wife, the queen. When she saw the king laughing, she let out a big laugh too. In fact, she laughed so hard she broke her throne. This made them both laugh harder. Then they got serious when they remembered they had the plague. The plague, said the king, but the way he said it just made them both burst out laughing again.
That's really funny.
The plague.